Good morning, Gen Rinpoche, Tashi Delay, and good morning, Katrina Brooks.
Good morning, Sarah. Good morning. Good morning. Yes.
Gisela knows that in English, so.
Yeah.
And just to let the participants online know that April 6th will be the last teaching of this series. And so this morning we'll begin with an homage to Shakyamuni Buddha found in the chat box. The teacher now transcend and destroy, the one that's gone, the foe destroy, completely and fully awakened one. Perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one not to bliss, nor the world's supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans to the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise and I bow. With your bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best, supreme guide, to you I bow. With a supreme sign, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop through a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, foreland, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ratnam Lakam Niyatayam. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening
Oh yeah, remember.
Đi xong gen là.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that got it. Or kange tuji nyesune. Kange tuji nyesune, tawa tamje pangbecher, tambe shuni tunje. Kodam de la cha cha lo. Oh yeah, tanga chuka sore. Tanda ngarazu sama. Ani tambe chutube. Lizin kebar shenshi togurwa. Tanda rabtin chine ko chutubalaya. Tunji komyada kukabi omara. Tanda membership ko chutubala deshin komba. Oh, tanda chi tsangguba, nangi sosol tsangguba. Tunji kanga tsangwe milushi. Tobate ko kiawangama. Le sambu sabali tani chungarwa. Ta dina shi ta taringa zu chetabi milu kebar shende. Sendi chikbu tunda ko senku ne meso ti chikbu tunda sochuna. Ne pamburi te ordon. Ti kiawa chima meba tindi ne kota arimado. Ti kiawa chima yudu. Kiawa chima ya sendi ya tenjogi milu tomne. Ane sanjegi tembala dan jene. Rangi nyamle cheba di kone kondo peya chido. Sada miye koban chi toba chaku. Chutube ten kebarche. O teli ya. Te chutub kukurado. Tende ko. Shen la tunge kechigi chu. Niri meche nal ya soso lunga yesumji kone. Shen ji so cheba la soba. Chewa pang. So cheba la soba. Chini chi kewa chub. O te chewa yena ko. Kewa chima nge sondo me kewa lada miye koban topkirwa. O te toli ya tene sanje ki tembatan jawa la soba. Sendile ya. Nyamle chebe yende tuzo, kewe che tuzo, kone kondo peye kukabi wara. O te che. Ta tene. Lada miye kewa pang che pane. Kewa kyuni tobar chagwara don. O te kyuni tobar chene. Lada miye kewa teya. Kibun dengi samlo kogo yara. Lada miye kewa teya. Ku tunge mewa tende marwa. Tunge mambu yara. Kika nashi tunge le soba. O kewa thoma mewa ne tunge nyade yara. Tanda tunge nyama. Mahambala tunga yide mila ya kyaga nachi. Lama yela tabchi lala chibu tungi so. Tungi ta tunda leda nyamu be shiwa chi yinde rala rawa meba pumbu dolin che kore. Tende tila korwa si gora. Leda nyamu be wangi rala rawa meba koa le tarwa chi chago samlo ko gora. Teta be koa le tarwa kyudi kare sene chagdanyi dire seba sede chagwa. Tawa sude kondo. Seba ke tambo yonsede kene yunguresine ngao nyamdo. Nga ngamzimba jine nga da nga setele seba. Chaba ti yungura. O ti indu ti pangu yara. Ti panye tundalya. Ene nga sheba ti rangwe. Takwaraba ti deshi memba. Metaba yemba. Pumbu nga la soba metaba. Keshi ki jure metaba yemba. Ene nga sude rangwa. Rangwa do tuba. Kavi basne deyo se nzuzo se yobarich. Takseba cheseba dich. No tende samrishtuwa. O tende ngade meba. Ta meba tobe tawa. Ya tomba ni tobe tawa ko. Tawa kumbala tene ane tala seba pane. Tarwa toba chagore. Seba sosuna. Seba pangbayna ane kwa kiwa ne yomarto. Tarwa toba chagore sam. Tena rā chibu tarwa toba samchana mendri sam. Chendi pama nyendrege tsambe. Kyawa nga mata, ti nga mala soba. Kyawa kandichi lamba yina ya. Rāga pama nyendri la soba ta shaya. Yani tindin kyabar chansigirwa. Chendi chanjanga pama nyendri chanjang yingu mara. Ti mayinge tsama ke pendo chene. Mamuchi katinil tene nga tsu tsoku yora. Cheza samche tsama. Rānglan di tīma chi sēyāgi khyabā chīyā mēvar chīrē te wārē. O tī yīndi zāngko simchāli yā rīsu mā chēba, chē di pāma nyendri lā sōba, kāngla chēba yunā tī nāshī tamchē gyur yoyō sam. Tī yīndi shēn de zūyā tini, tōma mēba nē tūngē nyāng kua lā, māngba nā tūs tēngkē rē sam. Tī nyōng ku nā pē tā gyobu rē sam chē wā, tī lī tūngē dā chāwar chāku udū sam. Tī chāwē chē tu tānda rāngla nīpa mēbē. Rā kyō kōnsē yōndēn kūndēn jī kīwō. Rā tab Chambada Zawala Soba, Sambu Chatala Top, Shirap, Shangi, Tunga Sawa Chibe, Shirap, Medabada, Dame Dobala Soba, Shirap, Chaburdo, Tabda Shirap Niga Tarchibe, Sanje Kobansam, Tabda Shirap Niga Tarchibe, Simjangi Tun, Niba Yonsu Soba Kone Truptum Gengi, Sanje Kobansi Chineja Tobarcha, Teshedo, near Lamla Rimji Loba, Loki in Samja. Oh, teacher, the nature, Yanni, Lamla Rimji Loba, Chanyambe, Kuno set them December shoes. Oh, yeah.
So here, at this present moment, we have this kind of precious human rebirth with all of the sort of conditions necessary to be able to accomplish the Dharma. If we were, say, born as an animal, we wouldn't have that ability. But right now, we have a kind of situation where we have all of the external conditions. We have met with the Buddha's teachings and so forth, as well as the kind of internal conditions that are necessary for us to be able to actually achieve the Dharma, something beyond just this life. If it were just this life, then okay, we could put all of our efforts into sustaining ourselves in just this life, but we have to take rebirth in the future. And so in order to be able to continue and develop our practice of the Dharma, we need to, in the future, accomplish this kind of same special basis wherein we have the conditions to be able to continue and improve our practice of the Dharma. So, and this means that on a day-to-day basis, we need to be thinking about how we are acting with our body, speech, and mind, seeing that any kind of activities that cause suffering for others, that bring about the suffering of others, are negativities, are non-virtues. Things like killing and stealing and harming others in various ways are going to lead to bad results. And so it is only by having connected with the Buddha's teachings, by having developed a kind of sense of the Dharma, that we are able to, through our practice, continue to try to get to a place where we can have a good rebirth in the future. So here, when we look then at the kind of situation, though, even if we are to say take a good rebirth as a human or a god in order to be able to continue our practice of the Dharma, when we look at all of samsara, we look at all of the various types of beings, and there are various types of sufferings in the different realms. But even if we are born as a human, we are subject to the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death. As a long life god, those kinds of nice situations, we are subject to various sufferings of seeing the signs of death and so forth. And in order to escape this kind of cycle where we are continually taking up aggregates and casting them off, this is really what it means to be in samsara. We have to get rid of the kind of causes that lead to such continued rebirth. And so we need to get free of our attachment and aversion, the kind of grasping craving for our side, as well as the sort of hatred, anger toward the other. And when we look at, well, what is the source of that attachment and anger or hatred? It's our sense of an I. It is this sense of grasping at an I, a self that is like permanent and self-sufficient, also autonomous, that leads us to then engage in being attached to certain things and have aversion for others. And so our grasping at something that's like a self and I, that's somehow autonomous or free, it is able to withstand or bear analysis. There's something that we could point to as being that I. It is on the basis of grasping such an I that we then give rise to this kind of attachment, in particular, this sort of craving. And if we can eliminate that false sense of an I, then we can eliminate the craving, the aversion that comes from that. And so we can gain a kind of freedom from this cycle of suffering. But when we think about it, just to attain our own freedom is really not sufficient. All of these beings, those that have acted as our kind mothers and fathers, we have those that have given us kindness in this life as mothers and fathers, but there are others. We are dependent upon other beings for our very survival. And when we look around, we see that we can't identify a single being who hasn't treated us with great kindness. And so it would be wrong. It would be like wrong for us to just leave all of those other sentient beings in that kind of suffering situation wherein they are continually, like us, subject to taking rebirth and continuously experiencing suffering. But in our current state, we really don't have the ability to fully help these other sentient beings. But if we were to be able to achieve Buddhahood, a state in which we have eliminated all faults, have developed all good qualities, then we would have the ability to guide others without any sort of fallibility. So by perfecting the kind of method side, by developing the qualities of a good heart and kindness, love and compassion, as well as developing our wisdom, we are able to achieve that state of perfect, complete enlightenment, wherein we have the ability to fully benefit other sentient beings, help them to eliminate their sufferings. And so with this kind of contemplation, we should think that I will, by any means, achieve this state of Buddhahood. And for this purpose, I am now undertaking, listening to the Dharma in order to be able to achieve that goal.
Oh, yeah. Wangan 좀 내려서 그것이 uma chupa lese roben dawa dawa madame avatar na ro semye kine semje jigde da ne jigde shindu na songo drama lu lele ke bar so sembana ne le je yo mais o tin do sa o ti do ya tin ni le ta da chebu ka ba to chir te cheba bon sem sang bar to se ta ton da nga tu de kar she gore se na jigde ge te ra ne jambulin di da Herwa, Nimadawala Sobate Samata, Garanzo Tessa, Zambuli Sato, Dita, Sigora, and a tailor launch and gig Simjan Dramenda, Tundrutam Vita, Roa, Tundramenda Dua, Chuji Simjan, Nejin, the new Yungdua. Oh, there's a dark country, and Yungi or S, call a Shagora. Oh, the Jamba, the Nacharo, what to Sura, good John Chile Sobayama, Marissa. The Koran Rangshingi Chomber, the Tamal Kande Chomber, Susur, the Samutanguma, Sigara, Kukora Rangshin Chomber, Jumebal, Juge Yomar, Korate Yoni Chomber, Sigara. Rangshin Chomber, take Juge Yomar, Tinel Susebata, Namada Chima, the Tende Samata Yomare. Marazu at the Chanjade Mata, Tinetama, the Chimaka Samutanguma, Rese. Oh, tende tawachi yungora, tengemang doa. Jagalia. Oh, dimaya kachi chitso sera. Tembuchi ora tutu trubachoro. Oh, dig in the mobukanga tsukivares, tambuchi ores. Oh, tire mato. Teta, any onju chembo, lawoju chembo soba tezuke. Kunu samlutani, diko sandin resogo samlutani. Any takba Koran takba rangchung ki kiburu o dig serveres tende singa chiora ya ka ji wanju ko mare chizo jangjang ke chungare chizo se dudu tuba chis yore neba yoch ko semyo mare dudu tubare dig kanga ya keberes wara na chi de sena o tiles ti jangjang yong mare semyo ge ji samrudan sogore ese de songe de woju chembe samrutan ta de ko de ko sa severes o tende so chu chidoa o tende ta nang ba da jen la so ba da shanda mang bu chi ya chi so ro ka de sanje ji den kam la chen ne ro nang ba sanje ba to de na ta de cheba bo ti cheba ma de so le ten yong dos so les ne so sem le ten yong sem ki kar ten den yong to se yo mara or ta le ti ba de chi jamna mang da so.
No. So here, picking up from where we had left off in the text, we were at the bottom of 45 with a quotation from Chandrakirti's Entry to the Middle Way, or Entering the Middle Way, where he states that mind itself creates the great variety of animate and inanimate worlds. Buddha stated that all beings arise from karma. There is no karma without the mind. And so then, excuse me, picking up again from that text, starting on 46, he also says, Chandrakirti also states, from understanding the refutation of a permanent self and a creator, one knows that the creator is merely the mind. So here, Buddhists assert that our environment, our external kind of environment, like the sun and the moon, this sort of solid planet, as well as all of the beings within it, the various animals, we can think of all of the various types of animals there are. So the container environment environment and that which is contained within it. These things are created due to karma. They come about from karma. Now, other views, like for example, the Charvakas, the sort of hedonists, would say that this world naturally arises without any sort of a cause. They assert that there are no past and future lives. Those are non-existent. So this is a very old system of thought in India, wherein they would say that there's really only what you can see. And so this sort of environment and the beings within it arise naturally without any sort of a cause. Or there is the assertion of the Samkhyas that would say that there's a sort of primal substance, a primary substance that's material. It is something that is like atomically or the particles are actually established. And this is in the nature of substance or in the nature of material. And that is what gives rise to all the world and the beings within it. There are others among the Samkhyas that would assert that there's some sort of a God. It's necessary that there is a creator, some sort of being that is self-arisen, a permanent kind of creator. So there are theistic types of Samkhyas. And then there are those that say, no, everything just arises from this primal substance, this sort of primary substance that gives rise to everything within it without any sort of intention from a creator. So there are various different thoughts on that. And then there are those that assert that there is no sort of external creator, but things arise from mind. So this includes the Buddhists as well as some like the Jains and so forth, who would say that there is no sort of external creator God, but all this arises from mind. Now, what we mean when we say that things arise from mind or the product of mind, it isn't sort of just like everything that one thinks, whatever sort of random thoughts enter one's head, that becomes reality. So we'll get into what it means to have to assert that everything arises from mind.
Oh yeah, what is the number general? Then the semi-kin, sem-jin-jik den da se. Oh, sem-ge, sem-jin timo da, so-so timo ma-imba, so-so lu dan chi, so-so dan reba to kanga, lu la sok te zu, so-so legi bora. Da chi dan jambu lin da chi ke, chi dan ge nyam do long che to su te samade, timo ge le sa bal tani yong bora. Oh, the sem-kin, sem-jin-jik den da, no jin-jik den shin do na so go se. O similar tene ne ji den damendra ron zabulin damendra mambu yongro no jiden kam khashe yaga da khashe tu ga da khashe chodo juba den de yongro da ron ne ji den semi gen de semje gen ji den damendra do wa do la so ba da chi me da la da ta ga la da to su tan de ngo su ton ya ke ma de ne ji den 심지게 지된 나서보다 내진 지된 나서보다 저 강가도 샘게 소바레 샘레테니 총아레 소라 거바스데 저바레 소라 계속된 로마루 레레게 버서세 남바체는 로아 담메다 교와상에 담메다 냐와이다 또도 메라라 소바도 사마탐제 라라 소소글레 사발테니 기요레 셔라 로마루 레레게 Simbanane legere le sede ko tote sibele da sambele sera tambo de kuno de yongora ngetende tende chigi sa kewa yena da mikewa yena da teda teche sambe simbadela simbele sora simba su techola samla dange de sora mirachil ko kondu na tari jabso tange ko chitoche kese toche sheku sam samla dange de simbele sora ni pando ne keze she kane keze she luginam yu tu jate chidusa lugiles sambele sura sebati chebe sambele sura lunga le ni de o te zultani yongu za zo de semdere do so semge kolon chen ani lunga le sa ne e pajo de kare kare ne paran tunge pajo tunge ke tin buara o tina shi sigur mo to semge chebere su semge kam sa sama ka samba sama tamje de yongu rese roan jiden cheba bo onju cheba na shi Koranga samba rawatu chani ugriste seyo marwa. Sembe lesa ne. Sembe lesa. Tene tegi sembe lesa. O tiche tele tene. Ene kewa da tekpa sabwa tene. Kewa sangye da longshu sangye la soba. Tewa da tunga niputi yongyo wale seyo ra. Semye kene semjen jiten da nejen jiten shintu ramida. Yanyi mambuti yongyo wale sera. Roa malu lele kebar so lele tene keba yin sera. 자 셈만이 레요 말에 셈기 사요라 담보 셈벨레데 쪼라 룡안기데 셈기 가르치스네 티치요다 쪼치와 말에 쪼치와데 셈라라 셈게라 르리아 라고 슈스네 코 쇼라 자르게 슈스 쇼라 마 슈스네 코 쪼데라 마도 라발라 나리 아티케요 말에 이지 가르쳐져라 돼서 셈 쪼네 되어라 돼서 셈게 레상에 따부 레상보다는 바사벌레 때문에 총알을 에스거라 다들 뺀데비샤는 아주 최대래야 수수 삼루다 삼루 삼보다 지소 삼루다 수수 삼루 삼보다 럽종 야부체 텐데 야부체 게되고 야리야 야르신도와 삼방에 바다 다분에 도자 공시자 삼방에 바다 미토르도 도르체 란데 샤드 lumbakan가 퐁리상가 텐데 용구도 어때서 뺀데셔 되고 레르바 셈벨레셔네 되게 삼벨링하게 레서는 되게 야가도 도가 용데도 가진가 좀 숨통에도 어디 공시든 가서 자대요라 이 개와는 개와 지만도 til레교라 이 상에 교와게네 텐데 용데요라 어디서요라 야 드네가래 야 되니래 딱다 집어가봐 도시대 집어보는 셈상이 벌써 나바전에 딱배다 제바보 라와체 원제 차사 연결되고 텐데시 요 말에서래 다다 제보 깎아 도실 때스 아니 가르에서는 제바보네 셈잠 임바도세 셈잠 기체래 셈소체네 거 셈소체 셈벨레사 텔레테네 르마게 레상에사 텔레테네 레상보게 다와 연결해 레냠바게 도가데 연결도 레상보산에 대회차진 좀 그거래 랭엠바산에 동해 차진을 도요래 전대해서 그다 야 되지 전대
So here, as it says in this quotation from Chandrakirti, then, that mind itself creates the great variety of animate and inanimate worlds. So here, when it comes to then the karma of beings, there's sort of common karma, shared karma that helps to establish the sort of environment that we live in, as well as the unique sort of uncommon karma of each being that creates their body, the sort of possessions and wealth that they enjoy, and so forth. And so here, there's various types of environments, various types of worlds, and all of these come about. We can see there's sort of nicer realms and lesser, lower realms, the world of animals. There's gods we're not able to directly see right now. But all of this arises from the karma that we have created with mind. All of these good and bad rebirths and so forth only can be traced back to karma. It's not as though someone, a creator god gave them or something like that. It's only karma that creates our results in these animate and inanimate worlds. And so when it comes to karma, as we've talked about before, there is that sort of intentional karma, the kind of intention that we have, as well as the intended karma, the sort of actions of body and speech that arise from the intention that we have. So intentional karma is the mind itself, that thought. Like say, for example, if you're angry at someone and you're going to go pick a fight with them, you have this thought like, oh, I'm going to go confront that person. I'm going to try to, get in a fight with them. And there's that intention, that mind, and then the sort of actions that arise out of that, the way that you act with your body, the way that you, your speech, the sort of words that you say to that person. And then those in turn are creating the causes for our future happiness and suffering. So it's not, again, as though sort of like whatever we think, whatever pops into our head arises autonomously or automatically, something like that. But it is due to the accumulation of karma, of accumulating negative non-virtuous acts that lead to suffering results, and accumulating virtuous acts that lead to happy results, that we then experience those things in the future. So all of the good and bad, all of the varieties of the world sort of arise from or are created by mind itself. And so here, continuing with the quotation, it says, Buddha's stated that all beings arise from karma. There is no karma without the mind. So if we get rid of mind, there is no kind of karma. Again, karma is primarily that intentional karma, that intention that we have, as well as that is intended by it, the sort of actions of our body and speech that arise from that. So when we say go to slap somebody when we're going to fight with them, that hand doesn't move unless we have that intention of like, I want to fight with this person. And that is how we then carry out that action. So we can see this sort of in the course of our life. If we have a good intention, a positive sort of drive, and we develop good qualities, good things happen from that. Whereas if we're on a wrong path, we can see how that leads to suffering sort of results. We can see that directly, the way that actions have particular results. So here, again, it's really primarily mind that is the creator of karma that in turn ripens into the various things that we experience in the future. So continuing from Chandrakirti, it says again, from understanding the refutation of a permanent self and a creator, one knows that the creator is merely the mind. So this then, the refutation of such a creator points to the primacy of mind, that our mind is really primary. The thoughts that we have and the kind of actions intended by those are what create all of the sort of world around us.
뭐야? 되네. 다 샘지된지 제바보 임바 되나서도 샘지된지 제바보 임바서도 지된지 내진지된다 주진지된이가 상보다 년바 용해대 디도기죠. 그러와 롱제자 수대지로를 서봐. 롱지저지게 르 상해를 라서봐. 그러와 대수 강가데 가르던 요거라서는 semge lesa bala ten lesa ngel ten yogores ta gyu zo de semre sora semge samlo tanda sange che ti wange lyeji che ba sange o ti re sora semje den ji che ba bo yin ba ten ase semde ji den gi ne lu lu che gyu zo de re se gen ki bar che be gyu zo de ti re sora chidar sange gi se pena segora sama songe sange gi Lana yuben jimbasen dakwa chiwardo soyachi. Zakenji suyi so kaan soso yimbata. Zakendiki dakwa chi suyi ne pumba suyi ne kare suyi ne uti Koran kare soso samrutane soyachi re dewardo. O tina shin cheche. Jidenji ne lu lonju tozo kanga. Cheba bo shenda chigi. Ine yueba che digi ngazu kare soso. Dewe kyudan tunge kyudan ngazu kyawa sange susu tenre maare se wara. Zangengi pumbate yip tindramende kaan susu imba naishi. Shenda chige ngazu sangbo dan ngenpa dan nejin jiden sange dan shuji semjengi liu sange. O tezu seba maare se tada. O zangengi su yip so kaan susu imba tar. Kyo namjang jiden goba pe rawangi kyawa sange so kaya Cheba shini mayimbar no sewa te sonza so ke semda sambe le sabal ten yungu yudu te kyuyi tsaware mato shenda jiten cheba pochi yuwa che tege ene nga ranzu teni long che tang long cheba po la soba titu tuzu kan so chi re cheni yungu yuwa ma res ti sebo re se ata nga no se nga sumdu sebo re se ata dare o ya kiwa sangye so kanya No.
So here again, then the mind is creator of the world. Once this is seen, it becomes clear that a divine creator cannot take living beings and create for them their fortunate and unfortunate rebirths under his own power, like a potter takes a lump of clay and creates a pot. So again, we are establishing that the mind is the main cause for the sort of external environment, the container world, and and those beings contained within it. So our bodies, our abodes, the various things that we enjoy, mind is the main cause of that. It isn't, it's like manifestly clear if we look at things that it isn't seen to be as like a potter who takes some clay and molds it with his hands to make a pot or whatever. We can see that it's not, we can't see a creator acting in such a way. We create the kind of good and bad in terms of our fortunate and unfortunate rebirths by our karma. It's not sort of given to us, as it says here, a divine creator cannot take living beings and create for them their fortunate and unfortunate rebirths under his own power, in the same way that like a potter would just take some clay and mold it. So we can see this directly, basically from our own experience, that no such creator exists.
Oh yeah. Dada rangi kewa sange da sudwa. Kashi kewa sangbu yore, tendula nyemba yore, kashi mida lala soba ngaranzu tonde le lawa. Samden koma lama bu yore don. Dada rangi kewa sange da. Ini kashi dewa da tunge manga, kashi tunge manga, dewa manga tende yungu yore don. Dada ngazu tong shimba de sigura. Dada rangi kewa sange da. Dewa da tunge. Dewa da tunge. Samju sange se. Samba sange da, choba sange le soba. Tende yoban de sigura. Choba sange ge nebe rinpo rinpo doa kansa li na ko sem sang le da, la da, chetu su chene me da, mambu yor do. Samlu tanda me da wa. Ani lu me da wa, sambu da ngeba me da wa. Nyo je jikten la zambu li sange mambu yor do. Ngaranzu tanda thong de de, ngaranzu desi de ma do ke thong yor marwa. Chitan zambu li da, jikten ji kam da ro, takbe shingam le soba. Kondra me da mambu yor do. Ngaranzu ngasum do ma chur na ya. Tada rangi kewa sange da, dewa da tunge ma yoda. Samba sambu da nyemba la soba. Teso nga me le elta yungora kumshi chane ko ngama samba sambu shukshimbu kumyene tanda sambu de chitos yungora. Nyemba la shukshimbu kumyene nyemba yungudwa. O ta tanda sendele taga neshi kumyene mahambana ya ti kebandu yordo. Sange ge Nirim des nebe rimba mendra doa sange mambuchi rimba doa. De namne ngar je rangi kosum je le sange la kombe kebale chosha o nima kewas ngama namso le sangbu sa badal tene. Ini le sangbu ki la tene sangbu ne jinchi ten long cha cha sangbu. Kewa sangbu tuzi yungore. Nyamba la tene tuwa tuzi yungore sore. Rimba dhamma yungade. Le sange gi rimba medol tani yungores. Ngar ji rangi kusum gi le sange la kombe keba le chongshin se. Ta maung bana ya taga nashin chongye de karil ten yungores na. Maung bana ya tanda ngazu chongye de ngeme sange le teni tanda te chongores gora. Ta maung bana yungye de tanda ngazu te cheba ta ngeme le le teni ya tenda yungores ya tendare. Maung bana ya tetar jungwe bashi yin se. Maungba yongya te tanda nganzu tsende tang kiwa ngame le sange sakbe drebuli tene oti yongko bashi re esi kora. Tewe na tsomba chenpe kechi tang yun tsamla ya taane rangi kosum je tima sewa la kebar shadi. O tende sonza ta tso de soso re de dwa. Soso mahombe tidu tang sange kari chunga te soso ke le sange sayel tanda ra le ge yudu. Ta soso sabso che kuya re shaasi gora. Tewe nasi kyusen tewe nasi sange tsangma soso kom shi tang o tende le sangel teni yungu yu na. Kyusen tewe nasi gora. Tsomba chenpo yu sen bezo chenpo che ni sara. Kechi tang yu tsamla yang se. Kechi tang yu tsam la soso lyunga yu tsam yu kunju tang samlo kari togo do kiti karban togo do choba karban togo do. Ti soso takje che ni. Che te pe keshe bude shaasi gora. Nika sere. Tsomba chenpe kechi ta yu tsam la yang rang la takwa, rang la taane rangi kusum kiyo sosu samlu kari tanga do lyunga cheba kari udo se tanda kechi ba tagi che ure se. Ta tende majuna ko nyiri tawa hina and you don't you make on so that it north, the Basaso, Gawa Desire Johnson, some Samadana, and the yard dora, Tiba Nuru, Gawa Marma, and do it, Sisharedana. Gimadan ko karchone chore samne ko chache degri mato yar de sound dress ke homara o disugara ne khase ta ne range kosum getima sewala kebarchade o sosu kosum lunga yesum ge kende sigara timas lunga yesum ge mege kende so pa sewarche ne lunga yesum ge kona shembenge chawala sobo o tezo to 용도에 제티 세부체네 용도에 제고래서 라게 고성게 디마세와라 케버셔야 돼. 신제 녀손다 제가나시 신제 다게서 나시로 하죠. 샤나 차와라서 빠는 녀손도 메겨와셔 하다 밀게와셔로. 아니 타르발라서 다음에 발라서 차단요로 다네. 아니 제가나시 동엘에 코알에 타르셔야 돼서 제고래서 신제 녀손다 제가나시 가래나 제가나시 동해래라 제가나시 동해 내 타르와서기 때 랑이지 자고에서 어때 소소 자고야 돼도 하시거라 개와상에다 롱주상에서 마오바나 가려면데 소소를 제고야지 돼 손제 단단단데 소소소소를 집사다제 다 마오바나 때 대화 용계 줄레베도 동해 용계 줄레베도 그만두도 됐다고 그래서 대전에는 야르야르 사르산두야도 자고베 랑게 간다 캡수조와 자고버 소소세 오 산제게 소소소소 캡투와 제고레스 소소소소 군접체투와 제고레스 소소체바데 랑자샤니 샨다질 라와체체 제셔로체 생각하샤니 요야 말이 송요라 랑게 간다 캡수조와 자고버 소소세 오야 티치 조나 마도체나.
So here then again at the present, the variety of conditions, fortunate and unfortunate rebirths, happiness and suffering, virtuous and non-virtuous thoughts and deeds arise from differences in the degree to which one was previously accustomed to virtuous and non-virtuous physical, verbal, and mental acts. So we experience varying levels of sort of fortunate or unfortunate rebirths in terms of where we have taken rebirth. And even within that, we experience some will have greater happiness, some will have greater suffering, and so forth. There's so much variety in terms of the abodes that we take rebirth, the kind of bodies, the kind of things that we enjoy. So we can we can't even see all of the realms. We can see sort of our human realm and the animal realm, but things like the pure realms and so forth, we can't directly see. But we can, for ourselves, sort of directly recognize how it is that when we habituate ourselves to positive qualities, habituate ourselves to good things, we develop the kind of causes for good results. And on the other hand, if we are creating the causes for our own future suffering, that is what's going to bring about our suffering. We can see that it is due to the habituation that we have created in the past that we bring forth the sort of results that we experience. So here again, the kind of life that we have taken right now is dependent upon having accumulated the proper sort of causes to have taken this sort of rebirth. And if then we are looking to our future, it is dependent upon the kinds of causes that we are accumulating now, the kind of causes in terms of the karma of our body, speech, and mind that will lead to our future. So again, this is placing the emphasis on the individual rather than looking to some sort of deity, some sort of creator to be able to protect or save you. This is instead putting the emphasis on the individual. So here it says, therefore, these will arise in the same way in the future too. So it is with the past, the kind of causes that we have created leading to our present happiness and suffering. So too with the future, it's in our own hands. And this means that, as it says, continuing, therefore, with great effort, we must examine ourselves every moment and become skilled at rooting out physical, verbal, and mental defilements. So we have to become skilled looking at our own mind, being able to recognize what we are doing with our mind on a regular basis. How is our mind directed? What is it leading me to do? And we have to become skilled at recognizing our own sort of faults, those kinds of things that we want to eliminate within our own mind, as well as recognizing those sorts of good actions and trying to foster them, trying to increase them more and more. And so we need to become skilled at sort of recognizing the way that we are acting on a day-to-day basis, watching our own mind. So it says, continuing here, therefore, then we must aim to free ourselves from the sufferings of unfortunate rebirths and birth, aging, sickness, and death. So it is only through our own sort of actions, by abandoning harming others, by getting rid of, as we talked about before, our attachment and aversion, that grasping at an eye, that we can gain liberation from this cycling in samsara. But these are things that we have to do for ourselves. We have to engage in positive or negative actions in order to experience the results. We can't look at someone else to do it for us. We can't sort of place our trust in someone who's going to give us those kinds of results. As again, it says here, it is said that we must become our own protector and refuge. Quoting then from the Dhammapada that says, you are your own protector. Who else can become your protector? The skillful become their own protectors and attain their aims. So we have to act as our own protectors. We can't depend upon someone else to do it for us, as everything, the sort of external environment, our own bodies and so forth, arise due to karma, and karma derives from the mind. We then are responsible for what our mind is doing. We can't depend upon a kind of external being to do it for us.
Hola, toate kong changi wara. Tenyi lesi, ra. Kabada, choji tsusu je. Tedarian choji tsusu je ben do lesi. Dona le song sha che ra. Choji tsusu je ben do na ya. Karson do se, tanyi dagen ganyin je se. Soso gen ganyin che kore se. Soso de soso gen jeb re se wara. Tanyi dagen ganyin da kyam gen de re se wara. Shenda sushin gwanda gyurse, soso kyobe tabshene, nikyo pa kewa chub, roa tarum kwa korche kyopa tarba toya tabla be, sanje yukoban tobje ki gekindos pa toya ki kyotosul bebe yena, ane rang kyab turwa. Soso majena, kyabe yomara, sanje pa kyabe lamtun tungi wara, tende chene kyarantili tatu ure ti kyab zegi wara. Kyoba borwa, lamga tengi wara. Tati soso che ura mada soso maje deni kyab tuya yo marto. Tanyi dagin goyen ge shenda sushin goyen de soso maje wene shenda che goyen cheni kyab tuya yo mara esi wara. Sanje ke kyab tuya yo mara. Goyen zege sanje nye che de kare se. Tishin shikwa temba de kecha namke chakwe so sungwa. Sanje ke lenge de kyab temba bodir ta ase. Timado shenda tunge pa lakbe seya ta tinde tunga tekba chui metu shin roya tunga chage meseles chui chui metu tunge tu lakbe pa meba soya metu sungora ni ki tokbe yende tu pa chenzul tesha metu spoya metu sungora ti yone pesha gara chuni temba to arjo tembe lamgwa de nge tengi hore tine shi chenzul rona ani kyaptu ure sungudwa oti tanye tagan gwen ye shenda sushin gwen de kyos Tani tagen gwen gyurwe kebe tenam toban jiso. Soso gwenjeb chene, soso che kwe de sanje sombe, che kunjo de yabuji rangi truba yina. Ene rangi samba kiwa chemba ngundu lami koba top to ure. Ene tarwa top to ure, sanje yi koba tobe kyutu ya yuare, tozu kanga tenda kanga dup to ure songo ara. Kebe tenam toban gyuru, shetan yahan tingi les, choji susu chebale rwa. Rangi gwen ki rangi kyamni rangi is sosu gwen re sosu kyam gen de sosu kyabar che gore sungara o she song so se o teach kushana.
So here, again, to read this quotation, citing the source for this from the Dhammapada, it states, you are your own protector. Who else can become your protector? The skillful become their own protectors and attain their aims. So really, we are our own protectors, our own sort of source of refuge, in that it is the causes we create that lead to various results. So if we want to get rid of suffering, we need to abandon the causes for suffering. If we want to get out of samsara, achieve liberation, or achieve the state of Buddhahood, we need to accomplish the causes for those particular goals. It's not as though the Buddha can do this for us. The Buddha teaches us the path, but there's no way that he can protect us beyond giving us that advice, giving us that teaching. So there are various sources that quote about this, that the Tathagata, the Sugatas, those who have gone to bliss, teach us what is necessary, but we have to do it for ourselves. So as it said elsewhere, the Buddha has stated, I can't wash away your negativities with water. I can't pull out your suffering like pulling out a thorn. I can't remove your suffering in that way, nor can I pass my realizations to you. I can't give you what I have realized, but I can only lead you through teaching. So here again, as it says in this commentary, we need to become skilled in our own mind, in recognizing the kind of things that are happening within our mind, the virtuous or non-virtuous thoughts that are arising. And that's really the way in which we are able to protect ourselves or be a source of refuge for ourselves. So as it says, again, the skillful become their own protectors and attain their aims. By understanding the sort of instructions of the Buddha, by having skill in working with our own minds, we are able to then accomplish liberation or Buddhahood based upon that kind of skill. And it quotes again from the Dhammapada saying that you are your own protector, you are your own refuge, meaning that we are the source of our suffering and our happiness. And so therefore we have to act as our own protector or refuge.
Oh yeah. No, that is it. No, that is you know, Mamma, we were more so teacher with us. Because man, I'm just on a man, I will not me never see Beko, she a Yaga Yuna, T. Tungeli Kapuyuna, I'm the Kavachi do this. I'm the Kavachin, I'm the Kavati man did this, so Karanasa to return it, try to do this. Could Captain Giora, Captain one at the man did it, or man the soda, and he cannot kept to this, or that's also man the lay, man the savvy, and I could get Nasa Tragra. Man the lay, man the Yahazi, my savvy in this order. Marazu Sanje so chudi to any so signally Majavina and Javaki Yomardo. What's your question? Never mangi Java talk about the dog and any sort of manitions. Man the Yajitene, man Yam Bukambukan content, Masan and the Payaki Yomara. Attend to society. Nasa triate, Chivenji, well, Javaki, so the man did it, Ora. Or Tina Singarazo to Mele Javiet and Devatri, so the chudere de Ora. Mikade, Papa, Titomsi Church, or Titso, the sweat on that. No, did you know?
So there are many verses as well from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Shantideva, expressing the same kind of idea. It's often expressed as like, if you are sick, say you have some kind of disease where you're really scared of dying, there's a possibility that you can die, and you go to the best doctor in order to find some kind of a treatment. If the doctor gives you medicine, you have to actually take the medicine to recover from your disease. If we go and find a very good physician, and we listen to all of their advice, they get medicine from them, but we don't actually take that medicine, then it's not the fault of the medicine that we haven't recovered. So again, when it comes to Dharma, we have to practice it for ourselves. We have to like take the medicine in terms of actually putting into practice what the Buddha has taught. If we don't do that and we don't benefit from that, it's not the fault of the Dharma. It's really the fault that we haven't actually put it into practice.
Oh, yeah. Tatane Tani Taki Tiduki Cheva and Deva Tenam Jesigora, Sanje Sombonashi, Tani Tag is Soso Rangi Devada Tungegi Chevabo so the Soso Reshasam. Soso Devada Tunga Ju the Soso to be a Reshasamne. Oh, Sanje Sombate Chevabo Paloke, Soso to Deshane. Kuchiche Matan Cheva Bolpa location, yo mare sugora so so che gode sugora o tinde ta ke lenge chi na ji den che babo so ma yin ba so 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 yin ba de ke lenge chi na se tene tani ta ge tidu ge che babo de ba te nam ki ne se sanje ge so ba na she rani rang ge tidu ge che babo re rang ge le sa ne tidu nyong go re sam de ge chi na sugora de ba te nam ki ne rang ge kosum ge nyeba se wa da kosum ge ane mege wala sokpa ta ane nyamu bala sokpa kyan tu su pa sel ko re shaash. Lekcho la tsumba shen le lekwe choba kege choge. Mundu lami koba topche ta tarwa topche sanje koba topche la sokpa. Lekwe yonde tu su la susu bekwe re se. Lekcho la be zun shen le jan che lakba she kwe shen se. Shenda cheba bolo lo ke shenga de tso pacho te lo ke she. Ani tensha de soso che de gen kang pacho pa ku shara o ti che bu pa te te le lag ba je soso che ko re se ti che na ni ji den che ba bo so ma re soso so re se ge ti ta da ti tu gwa ra ti me na ni ko che ba bo me de soso so ma che ti le ba tu ndo re che ora che ba bo ye ba so che ba bo chi yo sam te pa lo ke che de ya ko ta gre do o ti menanis mele loke me soso mache te shinga sur charo lenye ji choba kwando so no kosum ye nyeba se wa ta se lekcho la besun shenle che lagba she ko shen se o cheba bun de ke so le lagba che ngara so ke wala tuwe ta tipo pa de ke wa tuwe la so ba shanda le beso lagba che ke ko re se wara Tētā chūne tāñi ki mēndē pā tēnā kāndā kāng dōrwa tāsi, rā mēndē pē tāndā pā dōrya pāñyā tāsi wā. Dēbē tēnā kāndā kāng tōk wāndu lāmi kōpa thārwa tamche kēmbala sōpa kārī na. Dēbē tēnā kāng shī tōpa ngōmbar dēbā nam rāñi ki trūp nē bē sē, sōsō chē tūp ku dōsi chē na sōsō chē rī shā chē tūyā dōsam, chē tūyā mē wā chē na nē kā mā chō rī tō, trūp nē gu rwa. Trūp nē bē Popa tāsa, lōlea, popa tā nyingdūp lēkirē sikora, o tā sōsō kēchimbara, che tūyā dōsa, ngōndu lāmi kopa tūyā kyūti rē tuwa, shiāla tsawā pāng, shiāla pēmbā tūyā te rē tuwa sam, kiawa tōma mēwa nā nēwa kīshiyā shaba tūzō, shiāla tsawā cheba tūzō, shakwa chea rē tuwa sam, tākwa che ku tuwa sam sa, o tindē shēni ko lāmi kopa tūyā te hā ma guyā tā, tūmē tūyā kēyō mārā, sōsō mā tū tāra mā tā. Tinashita tarwa topje kyuta tamje kimbo topje kyuto sola soso rembi lokore sowara nimdu pewan gyurshen se pobata nimdu cheru dure se kansa de la jiden goba bo shen kane sem cheba bo tube tanda dembar gyurso otele jiden cheba bo kanja che yo mares cheba bo ba dönen digime dosi te kechimbo marese soso kechimbo rese de tubate koba chongore ese sanje sobana te manani te soso keba ke soso besu chele keba ke manduna ani te keba bo paka te soso sore sobate koba mandruba rese gora kansa de la jigden goba bo shen kane sem cheba bo tube tuba tondan dembara durwa yino se ya tiba de chisana to do to the jaga.
So here, then the Buddha has taught that we are the primary creators of our own happiness and suffering. So here, continuing in the commentary, it says, those who take up the creation of their own happiness and suffering must clear away their physical, verbal, and mental faults and make exceptional efforts to cultivate good deeds. So here, as the Buddha has taught, in refuting a kind of creator, he's establishing that you are primary, in that the mind is the creator of what we experience, our happiness and our suffering. So here, when we become sort of aware of the primacy of our own mind, this leads us to sort of recognize that it's up to us to take responsibility for our happiness and suffering. So once we recognize that we are the ones who need to clear away those kinds of faulty faults of physical, verbal, and mental faults, and also make an effort to engage in positive deeds, then we sort of, as it says in the next sentence, once this happens, those who wish to cast aside what they don't want and obtain what they do want will feel empowered and confident in their ability to accomplish things. So here, when it becomes clear that we are the creators through our mind of the kind of happiness and suffering that we experience, then we will take care. We will see that it actually brings on this sense of feeling sort of empowered and confident. We have the ability both to eliminate those kinds of negative things that we do, as well as to cultivate sort of positive qualities and our ability to accomplish things. It's such that we recognize, well, if we cultivate that particular cause, we can accomplish the result. So there's a kind of confidence that arises in this recognition that you are going to have to do for yourself. So here, this then continues saying that, again, for those people, the refutation of a divine creator and the establishment of the mind as the creator becomes ripe with meaning. Again, this is not, once we recognize that we have the ability, we are empowered to create the causes for ourselves, then it gives a kind of confidence. I'm going to train in these various stages, in the sort of stages of the path for the various types of beings, and I am able to actually accomplish those kinds of causes. So that's sort of what is meaningful about the refutation of a creator, and establishing mind as the creator is, again, it gives us this sort of confidence, this ability, recognition that we are the ones who have to do for ourselves. It's not just sort of for the sake of refuting, just to refute, but rather it is something that is incredibly meaningful for the individual practitioner to take up into practice.
Oh yeah. Tetar rangi kosumji. Tete chela kyapsun zimba nam yesu dwa. O kondo sheba na shinsu ora. Rangi lunga yesumgi. Ani cheba ngeba pa cheba sambo tenya ro. Shala tsawa pa kewa tuge. O tina shi rangi tini tado zimba da tangzi. Samsa ran takwan zimba. Longju takwan zimba ro. Ran takwan zimba sumba takwan zimba. Sanje te takwaris tu tenge in samsara shagora. Sumba takwan zimba ran takwan zimba. Sumba takwan zimba. Oh, there's membership, Midakware, some Keji Gurgen, some 2000 Shanda Majinale Raware Samutana. Oh, I do 2000 Teo Mara Samsa, Tendre Samlukona Pegiora, some Lucia Madani Kevasio Mara. Keji calling Jepata Juan to River Tantum that they actually were traveling with our the manna ko Rawara Samutana, take a Gangeto de Yora. Then to take it mare some dark catching setua leso samsa ko suse so the message on ready rakme meta varishati hakura teda range kosumji tede chola capsun zimba nam genese sose kosumji shala tsawa pa pemba tumne mondulame kova sose tangzinda tadon zimba sam ra ne tende zene takpan zimba da tadon zimba la tene ane chadang la soba ya pene kwa gyora te medaba samlata ta mga rawa ta me samsa tende samlata ne ko tarwa tobe kyula do yora o tina shi so thoma meba na rang ke shishu chibe sa nga ke shishu yin sam rang tenda trubalia shala tsawa che ko na ke me samsa so 강에 세야다 되어주게 된다려 시안을 처와를 소고 텐전주나 딩마레삼 텐전자고 시안을 라레 시안 학바체고레 삼사 특바치 미추 삼을 당거리 지내로 시안들 조치고레 삼제 어떤데 삼을다는 소소 고솜리아 아니 조하다는 소소 기부총은 중이 전부관계 남토베레샤 선배는 소소 배수디야 시르도로와 o tisira teda range kosumji tade range kosumji tede cholas teda bu kondo sheba teda chola capsun zimba namji tikom gen wone te redo asamne namji sugora ne china ge tende ge cho nam tala chidar nebe choji chesu tashes chinange cho nam chidar ne kasre tension temperature chunamla, Chita never chuki chisu tashes, tension temperature in the Zanko, give tension temperature la tene, Tevutewa yoya, make you attention temperature to where you are. Rua, Tala Shiko, tension temperature sonza, Kudan can tension temperature sonza, Jibache, Kichi in Jurosha Yimba. Kudan can attention temperature in the Rawa Tam Heba, Sosata of China. Oh, tender some taku resura. Oh, tender get you nam tala chidar never chuji cheso tashin. Shukurang neta the timber, tender taku, some good, come good, resura. Chuji cheso tashin. Oh, the chuji cheso tashin. Jigdela chagba answer. Jigdela chaba, jigdela ne lulajula sobat. Ya jigde sosu. Daniele chagwa, Dakiwala chagwa, Nella chagwa, Longula chagwa, Kanga chairwa. Jitella chagwa da, Yi meteo so, Chiniki tunese, and it was in Tantimentation, Ni Yi meteo shen, and Nishala Savala Sova Mabuyungdo, or Tezu Chiniki, Join Bahako, or the Tadwe Kay Basam, controversies and Tadwe Kay Basam, Bias, Sava Comial Sova, Chagwa Shen, Shenjala Sova to do Nako. Diya me kwa kwa chi kyuyin sama jini jiba samlo ko ne mewa tepsi chena sogara yi me te wa so jini ji tul ne se ta chomba chene se mewa so ne se gyundo chomba chimbe se de gyundo ne rangi me se na nyiri me se na chomba chimbe tamba da shishi da dembar ne bar che che se o nga lengero ko ne solo me ke wa te che wo asam Tarwa Tobechi the Kusaku Yasam, Saji Koba Tobechi the Kusaku Yasam, Chambache. Oh, Tina Shendo, Joachima, Hadame Koba Toji, Sawa Mebe Lama Drugo, Sawa Chigdo, the Shishin Kitagi. Adun Zimba, Dangzin Dang, Ajedan, Chadota, Chadang Shamato Drugo, Dugumedo Susutane, the Mayor Tepsi Oresura, Chamba de Shishi. Kaduna Tambachi, Deshamburdo. Susu Chawa Karichiguna, Tedati Chigio, Samsa Tagua, the Tata Chigdo Chimudo, Tam Susu Taya, oh, she never to Unita, Legacy to Unita, Kaduna, Tication Burdora. So Tanda Dimazo, Kondo Sheba to Zulus, Tata Rudo, Rumedo, Tambada Shishin, and Dembara, never Chesha. Getar never nam nesa, or Tendenge Concert as Onesigora. And Ling Shen Mayimba dance, Ranten Saka linked of the Shandake Komare, social attention Gordo. Jab Shen Mayimba, Jab Shandaji gets them watch all social chatty, chatty social community red awesome. Jab Shen Mayimba. So Dani Rani Yube, so Dani Dang, or Rani La Yube. Wholesome ye keveche la ling dance or soso saya ke keveche de soso tensa ke ling is. Tenanga de tsora je rosona ne paruje sakambore jil te de le sulin je ngesu kapsare sigdo o tina je ke ling se soso nesa de buje nesa ke shire sungara. Keveche la ling dance kapsu che ba yin be se soso tensa te da. Ane soso kyomgen wone de soso che ke che de yin samlo kora yimbe sigura kansa de namne tembe labala loba namje chodo sonsos tamba sanje chumden de go soso li shiche soso mahomba yoete soso cheku yesam soso tensa de soso yesam ra o tene gujep singete soso chya ki chode soso chawe chode yesam sa o tende samlo konge de ina Kortowayina. Any guys, Kansa Tenamne, Tumbe Labala Loba Namja Chodo Sonsos, Tumba Sanje Chumdendege, Chu Sonsha, Labja Sonshangatella, Lomgenge Chodo Jobate, or the Yin Sonre, Tanda, Sosu, Kosum Jichovalia, Chuda, Link the Kamgan, the tea in some telling Yiri Messina, some Tangade, Dhamma Sanje Chumden Degane, Chinju, Labalum Ganam Bicho in Songsha Assert. Yeah, teach them to.
So here then for those people again who are taking as a refuge. So those who uphold as their refuge such physical, verbal, and mental practices will see inner and outer dependently arisen phenomena clearly and will successfully subdue their attachment to the world, their unhappiness, and so forth. So here, if one takes one's own practice of Dharma as refuge, recognizing that it is through abandoning harming others and working to benefit them, that we can gain the good rebirth and gain a good rebirth in the future, or by abandoning holding oneself as permanent, holding things as being in the way that we perceive them to be, as really existing as though they had some kind of stability or permanence to them, like holding on to our life as being permanent, for example. So even by contemplating things like coarse impermanence, even if we aren't yet able to recognize things as being momentary and so forth, this sort of recognition, our practice here, that sort of contemplation of impermanence allows us to recognize that things aren't going to last forever. They aren't something that we can be attached to or that we can place our trust in. And so here, again, if we as individuals are able to see the sort of various causes or the various practices of the different types of beings. So again, if we can see that if we get rid of this grasping at a sense of a self and the kind of attachment and aversion that arises from that will lead to liberation. Again, that's sort of a refuge for a person of middling scope. And again, if we can, moving beyond that, see that it is this holding ourselves as most important, the sense of an I and this kind of self-cherishing that arises from beginningless time. If we can see that this is actually the source of all of our problems, and if we can invert our thinking by instead trying to cherish others in the way that we normally cherish ourselves, we can create different results. So it is in dependence upon this recognition of dependent origination, that inner and outer dependently arisen phenomena clearly, so they see these clearly and will successfully subdue their attachment to the world, their unhappiness, and so forth. So again, it's by recognizing these sorts of types of dependent origination, that virtues lead to the resulting happiness and non-virtues lead to suffering and so forth, that it is attachment to an I and the kind of attachment to mind that leads to our suffering, our cycling in samsara. If we are able to recognize that it is that self-cherishing that is leading to all of our various problems, if we can recognize this in our mind regularly and are able to then with mindfulness and introspection, be aware of what's happening in our mind. This is the real kind of source of refuge. So again, continuing in the text, it says, they will then energetically sustain their mindfulness and introspection. Those who have seen this clearly, these sorts of clear relationships of cause and effect between the certain sorts of actions that we take with our own mind and the kind of result that brings about. So if the kind of mindfulness is that recognition of the relationship between cause and effect, and introspection is that faculty, am I actually doing that? Where is my mind going? What am I doing with my mind right now? And so those who abide in this way will take as their refuge and haven principally themselves, as well as their physical, verbal, and mental virtues. So here, when we have this kind of recognition, we will gain the sense that it is our own mind, as well as the sorts of actions that we create, that are really our source of support and protection. It is our real refuge, is not some sort of external thing, but rather our own actions of body, speech, and mind. And so these, the Buddha has said that these persons are the best students of what the teacher has to teach. It is that kind of recognition that our own actions, our own karma of body, speech, and mind, particularly that those virtuous actions are our real source of refuge, are our haven, our sort of shelter from the storm of our various non-virtues. That these types of individuals who recognize this are the best kind of students.
Oh yeah. Katin do kungchara, tanda tada shayate kungchara. Tedarian doles kunkaos, sanje ma kunkaos sungudwa. Tedavena tada ngam, tanda sanje chumden de shugbe kavyambam. Ma dejaro sanje chumden de nyangele debe tuyina rase. Dani ling dangase, oh, sosu tensa de, nye sosa sinemedurwa. Oh, so tensa de sosu ibada. Dani kyab dangase. 소소 겹야들 겹자 소소 겹을 제고 소리 당이 겹다 최린다 소소 제가 최대 링단다와 내 소소 링단다와 생매도 최린다 최겹다 랑게 제 최대 랑 겸게 된 인상 경문에 때 인상 보여라 링신 많이 받아 될래 현배 링신다지 대서 현다지다 아니 겸게 현다지 여바 많이 삼든데 삼게 겹신 많이 봐 겹신 여바 많이 봐 많이 봐라 내가 대단해서 다 된다 소소 개침 부인 봐 그러나 현다지 지진으로 우리 삼 된데 봐 현을 때문에 좀 많이 봐서 대단해 디다데서 대단해 디다니 세가래 내 결론 라발라 로반 대바 남지 초도 교로스 결론도 지내게 결론 라발라 로반 대바 남지 초도 교바이스 괜히 얘나테 괜히 라발라 로반 대바 남지 초도 교바이스 어떤데 자주니라 최소성 바다로스 야 어디스도나.
So then, as a source for this, coming from the Buddha's sutras, and this then is as the finer points of discipline states, this being a sutra. So again, it says, Ananda, consequently, whether I am here or not. So speaking when the Buddha was alive, whether the Buddha, it is at that time of the Buddha's presence or not, those who take their selves as their haven, their selves as their refuge, the practice as their haven, their practices as their haven, the practices as their refuge, finding no other haven and no other refuge, they are the best of my monks in training. So here, this is really, again, emphasizing the importance of the individual. The real kind of protection and refuge that we have is ourselves, our own sort of mind. The practices that we engage in are our source of refuge or protection or haven. So the individual is important. The individual themselves is responsible for finding refuge or haven in their own practice. And so here at the end where it says then, they are the best of my monks in training, this is speaking specifically to that audience, but we could apply this, these are the best of my sort of novice monks in training or nuns in training, any kind of disciple in training, those who take as their real refuge their own practice, that is the best kind of disciple of the Buddha.
Oh yeah. Sta kondo sheba ta sta kondo mabusha sara. Kondo sheba ta jiten goba bon deba tas. Jiten goba bon debe chulu mabu yordo. Oh te. An deba tas. Men debe jiten goba bo cheba bo mebe susu le cheba bo sore samjage nang bata burwa. Ni jenda tuzo chi sara. Oh yeah, kondo shebata, jiten gobabu debata, mendebe chuye, chesu juba namlas, jiten gobabu, jiten soabu, hashen, roa jibabu, bonjula soba, shendan debatel siwara, jiten Kondo Shebata, Jiden Gubabo, Debata, Mendebate, on Nangbata, Nangbashi, Tatan, Mendebe, Chuye, Jason Juba, Namlase, Range come down Mebe, Wale, Gashila, Sambada, Chuba, Chuchi, Go Namla, Kebara, Shavayoras, or Jiden Chebabon Debata, Mendebanilia, Gansan Gashilia, Soso Churchia, Danchi Samlutan, Tuzulia, Kabachembuyo, Eswara. Gashila, Sabada, Juba, Samlutan, Juba Kitala, Chuju Yichi, one of Church, the Candilimba, Munzuchi, Tuzula, and Namla Kebar Chisum Yores, Kabachembuyo. Yang Chidan, Yang Jiden Gubabo, Yabata, Meban Debe Chidan, Chudeba Namlase. Chidan Mimambushalia, Samjula Tesamji Kabaramo Seche, Mebara, Chatubaya, Nashese, Dramadavarichi or Chiden Chibabun Devada Medevase, the Suda Tis Keba Mege, so the Tende or Es or a church at the cover. Chiden Gobabo, Mebe, Tatu, Koshe Chisam Yoba Mambo, Yang, Chiden Gobabo said, Maybe Cholia, Tatu Kanga Yabu Shengen, so in a answer. Chidengi Gobabo, Deba, Namda Samju Kever, Mose, Sambada Chebale, Shirang, Mose Chimbura Mege, then Drabu Drabu, Tende Yogudo said, Mose, Che, Tesa Mebaya, Mabushi Nasa. Chirin Chiden Gobabo, Mendeja, Le Sange, Tidugi, Chebabo Deba, Mabushi Lase. Tibun Kidula, Sushi Chamba Yubese. Jiden Chebabu came Melimba Yenayasura. Jiden Chebabu Shanta Songe, Ojula Soboyo Mares, Soso Kachambure, Soso Le Sange Chesudores, Tende Samgesura. Jiden Chebabu Mendoja, Le Sange, Soso Le Sange, Tidu Yongores, Chebabu Deva Gashilas, Sim Jiden Chebabu Deva Setira, Tanda. Gashila, Tibun Kitula, Sense, UBS, oh, the Juden Shabab Madunaya, Social Sem de Sores, the Social Sem down, Luna, Chiba So Cheja Kotsunguara, or the Inducer. Sushi, somebody Ube, Chibabu Meduba Tama, Jambimba Tabu Chedawa, Shikala Yinsa, order. Tatunda, Kachi, the list of Jiden Chibab Maduna, and if the Kasura. Nastics Kemelige, Ta Kemele, Jiden Chibabu Kemalena, Nastics to Zero Cheddar Stagis of the Sigora, or the Lake Marisora. Chibabu Kemalena, Kukunju de Soso Cheche, the Babaya Keva to be church here, Dagweshachi, which are using coils over to the pay of Chiora. What do you do? Go Jangdinashi, Chetawachi, Kayaman, Jiden Chibabu, Messengera. And it thought of one massacre city. The Chedawachi Maris at the Garris quick Kawatrueta, the Bapa had a Kawatruela soba, the so get Chimbuches, Shania Hagwatch Chetu Sigara, or T. Duzanko, Shandazu Tatatilia, or Chibabu Kemele, Tina, and it's Chedawa. Jambina she let him the camel Gaka make it some. Today, married to Tushin, the Yabuja killing your resora. The Munkirula Tushin do somebody, Chebabu Mendeba Tama, Jambimba W. Chedawa, Shikala Yinsa. Let him the mass kitty in deputy to your Marison, the Cheda on Etero. Kukewach and Debu Young Debutua, Kumikewach and Debu Miko and Gursete, young dog with Tawaraba. Logbeta Amarwa. Oh, this other call. Sama Jambimba Tabu Chetawashi. Chibaba Meduba, Jambimba Tabini, Jine Chibaba Dugumare, Kawangashi, Duguma Lake, Dugumare, Sendeli Chonate, Tawasa Rangjungi, Rangshingi Chonate, 나는 메시티 김나께 그래. 팀마다 신다 상을 마동 생겼어라. 뭐 디나신 말해서 와라. 남보산지부터 내 김레스 그래. 겨우나지 찍어래. 잠바도 짜와. 샴페인 쏘고 찍어래. 디체는 디체다가 그 리뷰 말아. 근데 삼교가 말해서 해준다래. 시바보 메도바 참마 장변바 답이 체다와시 가라이세. 야 어디부터 질라나 마부도사.
So here, following this quotation, it says, let's compare those who assert a divine creator to those who follow a teaching that does not assert such a creator. So when we look at their beliefs, we find quite a difference in how they conceive and express their teachings. So again, there are many sort of followers of spiritual traditions who assert that there is a kind of creator. And then there are those who assert that there is no such creator. And when we look at the two of them, there's a great difference in terms of like how they understand their teachings to arise and how they express their teachings and so forth. And so here then, though, yet among those with a spiritual faith in general, whether they assert or do not assert a divine creator, we find fewer clear differences when we examine their thoughts and deeds. So here, among those with a good understanding of the view and tenets wherein a divine creator does not exist, many have thoughts and deeds that are indistinguishable from those who do assert a divine creator. So here, the way of comporting oneself, whether one asserts there is some kind of divine creator, or like the Buddhists say, asserts that mind is primary, and holds one's own actions to be most important. There are some who do assert a divine creator, but still think that their own actions are important. So they don't necessarily have a way of comporting themselves or deeds that are totally different from those who do not assert a divine creator. So for among those who do not assert a divine creator, many do assert virtuous and non-virtuous karma to be the creator of happiness and suffering. And these people consequently strive to eliminate sin and cultivate virtue. So here, there are those that are, we might term them as being like agnostic, that they don't assert any kind of a creator, but they aren't necessarily espousing a kind of nihilist view like the Charvakas. Again, the Charvakas would say there's no karma, there's also no past and future lives, and there's all sorts of things that they don't assert and are really fall into a nihilist kind of a view. But there are those that actually, even though they don't assert a creator, still act in a certain sort of way. And maybe it's based upon a correct kind of view. A correct view meaning that someone believes that good sort of actions will lead to happy results, and non-virtuous, harmful actions will lead to suffering results. So continuing, so thus, even if a creator were to exist, these people would be acting in accord with his intention. So even if they don't accept that there's some kind of a creator God, they might be acting in a way that they would believe is with their intention. But not everyone who does not believe in a divine creator is a nihilist like the Charvakas. So there are, again, those sorts of agnostics who might still believe in the importance of individual actions and not really fall into a nihilistic view. They think that there is a connection between the sort of cause and result, as opposed to a Charvaka where it's like this being is newly arisen. There's no sort of, we can't point to any particular causes. There aren't causes that we are creating for our future rebirths and so forth. So they don't see a need to cultivate any kind of good qualities over lifetimes and so forth. But Buddhists do not assert a divine creator, but they do assert a teacher who is a refuge, one with power of having completely eliminated faults and realized all good qualities, fulfilling others' aims. So here, there's then those who, even if they don't assert that there is a divine creator, they still have a sense of there being sort of order to the universe. Like, for example, Buddhists that would say that causes accord with their results, and thereby we need to create our own sort of causes.
Tene kyangpi batabu maare shara, karesna, kansa deta ne kede chebabu yona se, 다 제바보 전대지 상배 송gen시 근데 여바 이나 수이나 야스게 와도 제바보야 원주다 상발라 속바 제바보 임바셔라 얘네 저저 그 단다 제바보 면대베 강사게 제바 와 샹라 차와 바 펜바토 참바다 니지 chanju semla soba komgejine teliako peyahudu samsan tengirmato ode aumedo ngai chebabu yin sam keleng me sam kon sakmara komba mababa yuma resigara kansa deda ne kede chebabu yona te komba daya ani che yonsu timba kuran komba da che yonsu timba lega che yore sora 샹라 사와파 펜바토 참바다 니지 창조 semla 사와 콤데 에티 kuran 공부다 튜바 kuran 텐데 참진데게 펜바토반데 계시 고라 대체 용서 튜바를 줘봐 요아시 이노세 이노세 나마다게세 어디던자르치라 어디치람나 타셔샤
No. So here, sorry, I read a little bit ahead, but so there are those who do not assert a divine creator, but many do assert that virtuous and non-virtuous karma are the creator of happiness and suffering. And so these people consequently strive to eliminate sin and cultivate virtue. So here again, this is getting at that even not all of those who don't assert a divine creator fall into a kind of nihilistic view. There are those that still assert that there are certain causes that lead to certain effects. And so therefore, even if a creator were to exist, for those that don't accept them, these people would be acting in accord with his intention. So again, not everybody who does not believe in a divine creator falls into that kind of nihilistic view like the Charvakas.
지대 제바부 인식의 지어라 뒤에 정바 아니 정바 지대 제바부 말에서 남바도 지고 정바다 저와 샹라 저바 뒤에시 신게시나 정바 두 개를 모두 저 정바 나 제바부 kelli mudu sam ane choala stula mabawala so tende yung marese wara chitan tarchimbe kansa mambu yordo ina takba rangjo de tende nangbe kelli marmado shandawe chebabo hinsenge kansa tende tar yosigirdo changbatabu nangba ke kelli wara yena koti karsora o tezuga lola thula sawada mabawa tende rega mareso teda ke samlda themba ya ngarazo ina me yabu chenge chini sanjo ile yabu tenge ni yabu de samgir mato ti tujari ke samgir mardo o ti na shiresa namba daga jigden je cheba bu mendo cha namba choge jigden cheba bu de marese pangdo thar chebe shende trube thune chenge captain babo pangba ta to ba thar chebe ne ta tu yongenge ani captain babo sanjeta chedan jorwada che temo mai baya che la se jorwa ji shiwa tabu de la mabu chile che mi se ya de ge tolia zo chile yoge de ke le gora shi je wa da tabu so je chile la mi se tuni che mi se ko ne ba yoge ge ta so jan de be se ji den go ba bo da cha te be samle josa yebe samjuya yodo se ta dabu da chiko tile soa tamna ti mixe ti yungri samsa tinde ti wara yina ko kyewa sange ta ne jin ji den da samma tamji cheba bu tire se tinde yungma ti kelengo marwa chidan midar jine ko chichili roba che ta tinde yungwi wardo o ti ndiko tedala cheba la soba soba la tamna sunamsa na te wange so se sunam tembe mi samba namja drupse anase tende yonggi wara o ti yena ko tamje nyawal ta yidal ta tendru ta sangbu che nyamba che ti samma songge che na ti mandir ta nangba che na ji den kam na to to sam ta ma shu wole yong ya wo ti shi tu na ti so
So here, again, not everyone who does not believe in a divine creator is a nihilist like the Charvaka. So even if, say, there were to be someone like Ishvara or Brahma or some sort of being who has created the world, and if the sort of beings within that world, even if they didn't have a kind of faith in that, it's not as though so if among those who do not assert a divine creator, there are those who still assert that virtuous and non-virtuous karma are the creator of happiness and suffering. And so they engage in a way where they are striving to eliminate non-virtue and cultivate virtue. And so if even if a divine creator, like someone like Ishvara, were to exist, and these beings were acting in this particular way, that doesn't somehow like contradict that divine creator. It's not like the sort of assertions of those who do assert a divine creator would be undermined by these actions, or that they'd be displeasing that divine creator. That sort of divine creator would only think well, one would think, if someone were acting in this sort of a way. So here again, though, Buddhists do not assert a divine creator, but they do assert a teacher who is a refuge, one with the power of having completely eliminated faults and realized all good qualities, fulfilling others' aims. So here there are those types of beings, countless different beings who have perfected their own power and ability, who have developed, who have cultivated these qualities of method and wisdom to their highest, with this sort of special ability, the kind of like enlightened activities that allows them to bless sentient beings and so forth. They have these kinds of special abilities, but they don't assert a sort of omnipotent kind of creator deity, one where one is able to sort of give happiness or suffering, or the results are not due to the causes that we have created, but are instead just bestowed by some kind of a deity. So here again, although there are perfected beings, a Buddha, a teacher, is a perfected being who is a source of refuge because of his teachings, they don't have the sort of power to create the world in the sense of a creator deity.
Oh, yeah, very much. Oh, very much. What did I know? Number to the Mawa Nambi Sura. Tony change Lateda, so out and to the never miss a you get chili miss a you get in the killing it. To some Judaji, Jebabola killing Maresura. Sama Titu, sama Tamjetichi, Yobata, Joa Sang and Dre Yobata, Nugin Judah Sang a Kanga, comes to Comboli and the Shabata, Tendis killing Maresura. Deda Naya Nambe to the Mawa Namji, Tony change Lateda, Kaya Judanji, Chebabur Mendelas, Sanje Chumdende, so Sanje Nambias, Sanje Chumdende Tabu Sanje Tarshibe. You are top the Shiruniga Tarshibe, Kansa Sanje Tamebo Yordo. Niba Chever Chenge. Yanda be Captain Babo, Jamne, Tartu to Yanda be Captain Babo, yes. Captain Babo, Jamne Tartu, yes, 10 degrees. In a Jude Chebabo Mendebata, Jude Chebabo Mendebatar, or Jude Chebabo Dugmare, Sanjela Soba, Sanje Drame by Orwa Chitane, or Tindu Tarchim, Kibun, the Vacha Yuda, Teso. Jude Chebabo Dugmare is what Mendebatar is Tina Shesora, Shandin Namji, and Jude Gobabo Debe, Sangbala Soba, or Tesoya, Hachambu Tesoya, Jude Gobabo Ibango, Jude Gobabo in Badi Kelly Madamato, Mendeba and Gichiri, Sangbala Soba Teso, never came Kumaresura, never my nose, Yana Conjude Chebabo Young Mares. Kelly Maris, oh, yeah, Tibet Chilana.
So here then, Tibetan and other Buddhists also assert a spectrum of deities who can intercede in matters of wealth, lifespan, peace, growth, power, fierceness, and so forth. So here, again, we need to distinguish, because there are those who assert some kind of a creator deity, do so that in a way that this creator deity has the ability to create the world and its inhabitants by a sort of thought, whatever they think, and they are then able to create. Whereas Buddhists would assert that there are countless perfected beings who have developed their abandonments and realizations to the fullest, have completely perfected the method and wisdom leading to them becoming a perfectly complete being, but yet they don't have the ability to create the world or to give happiness and suffering to others. So here, although there are these different types of deities, they are not an ultimate source of refuge. Generally, we can say that they do exist. Beings like Ishvara or Brahma, they might have certain sort of special qualities that they have developed, but they don't have the ability to protect us or be a source of refuge, or in terms of creating the world and its inhabitants. Although we can say that generally they exist, they don't have the kind of power that they are imbued with by these other sorts of traditions.
뭐야? 오늘 남배 쇼남소서 다들 오늘 도박고 열하셔다. 남배 쇼기 나려야 쇼남소서로 지된 거바본 더발라 루테 마셔 버렸어. 드니 지된 거바보 여발라 루테 마셔 버세. 아니 telea takche mambu chani jiten goba po yo mare yo me tinde samlo mambu tane takche mambu chigido asera ona nambe shon nam so jiten goba bon de ba la lutin ma che ba teda timba ke malam ba che yo se maloshe tela takba ma do che de te yo me de takba ma do che ne tesum long do ase jiten che ba bo yo ba la tesum long ane Shenjola Shetan war Cheba, Mahinam Yam Nase, Shenji Denji Cheba Bundeba Tozulia, Tambuchenene, Pa Kapachi Yorvasivara, Marveser, Yam Nase. Tedar Taba Cheba Ne Jiden Gobabu, Yeme Tona, Chidar Neba, Shin Rangi Shebe Tendo Yingis, O Timaresura. Tagwa cheba de ngone jitengi nelu longjula soba ranzu sosu kiti la lengi la soba tezo kande shwa yin samne de cheba bode che de kechembure dora soyu ju kangla tene yongu yobate o teda tagwa cheba ne jiden goba bo yeme donla chidar neba shin rangi shebe tende je ngone de karina de hakoye tandalia takche chigware sigwara mato shenda tulia Choache, Tindeshido, Macao, Tindeke Maresora. Teda Tawa Chebane, Jiden Gobabo, Yamegiton la Chidar, Yamegiton, Chidar Nevatar, Yavaina, Mevaina Roa, Telia, Corripeta, Cheche, Horton. Chidar Neba, Shin, Range Shebeton to Yingese, Moy Nesu Karina, Tisosa Hakoyatanda. Cheba Sigare Shara. Yinji Shanla Tang and Mayan also, Shanla Shedan Kondu Chen, Tipa Tambu Chen, Kapacheva Maresura, Teletapacheva, Taxasheva Maresa. Number Sanje Niji, Kangi Sumba Namlaya, Tusha Nam Yes, China Nambe Luciana, Tumba Sanje Sum Shabe Sum Tazulaya, Taxachen Kele Gurese, Sanje Rangi Sum Yorle, Kapacheva Sum Yorno. Sungse sama kailenge omare, sanje songshaba changdebe domambo yora. Sanje che sondu kapkavlia, tushe sambana, kule tishena yabu medu sam, lota kesare samde, kongde ni ako tayo songshaba yore. Kansa tayo si chirube sambana shi, kansa gashile tayo songshaba. Pumbu ngani kuru kokwa bane kansa go side. Pumbu ngabude kuru na shire, ti nalo yoge kansa de nalo yore se. So the round Tayoba Songora. Yako Kabri Dayoba Songore. Kabri Tujan Gashilia Tayoba Masuna, Yomarisne Cocheta Longore. O Sanjeti Songudo Ataka Meduasam, Nakora Chida Mevas Cordu Mato. Rawadu Tuba Me, Tenetaba Yosam Tende Yawacheto Marwa, or Tende Dayoson Saviola. Gabriel Kasha Joashine. Tayo Vessel, Tayo, Maso Meva, Maso Kagashugiora, Lema Jebse. Tako Yosene, Tata Lava the Pendugora. 매세나고 매와데 쿵도 치투에 요마르 체달로에 야가요래 그래서 개마선 쇼가 레마죠래 자 치르반 가시고 산제들 레탑요 마르스 레짬마투르스 레짬마도 마르 가란솔레 삼살을 계시데 가가 되고야 마무 연구도 와 자철을 맞이 치시는 드레스나 마르 마르스 ane zache masun tantache dekwe yungyorā. Ane kashelya taa yo marese sebuchene songwe yorido. Ode yende deje kamda samba sanjege cho sonde ganga pacho del tanda karishena kaado maungbana ko karido tanda samba karido kamda meba ganga kingi yora. Ganga kinti yone kapkablia deje korana papache cho songsha yora. 강가를 뭐에 내주지 산재 캠바나시 양닭을 쳐지 강가를 셔셔나 강가 팬토를 내가 요 말해 미세데 삼륜하려고 감도 삼바다 매바다 뭔지 박샤단 라면다 요라 근데 코란 팬도 여바시 송그르마도 콜 팬도 매 내가 계약서를 진도하이네 아니 마디르도 어때 손잡고 장대다 내대만 무슨 산재 그배 와게 근데 장대 송샤부터 텔레게 요 말해 주다 마와시 연구도 안 나발이야. 너대바 지다 지다 마와시라. 네 오마바 셈셈바서 대서 그 뒤제 잠불이 밀 삼루다 면다 파샤 드라면다 여기 마부 여사 저 드라면다 소샤도 카셜레티 로라 바바다 티 팬도샤야 카셜레티 로라 바요. 강가 콘도 슈트고요 말 참무도 손에 미 강가 셰투고 말와. 로타키야다 치트데 냐칸도야 요르도 셔서 산제 손베 촐이야 장등에도 마무요래 아란즈 레진이 파셔야데 소소카라고 티바션 거저디 팽기나 네비나 티게 삼루땅 마로 하코투야 요 마로 진데레요 마테 손자 장등에도 마무요라 산제 손셰베 손래 강가레 케레 고마르 산제 라니 손고도와 견로다감 케남 지스나 비응아 줄롱데 세제대가 세제 레바다는 라와체 쿠치메스 소소 삼루타 다제체 니 야부도 삼테 켈레 냠리체 야부메도 삼는 샤쇼 송거라 야 담마다스야 어디지라나
So here again, nevertheless, among those powerful deities, none is a divine creator of the world. Also, Buddhas such as the Blessed One are teachers who show the way to genuine refuge and are the ultimate refuge in terms of having given teachings. But the Buddha is not a divine creator of the world. So Buddhists refute the assertions of other traditions that a great deity such as Brahma or Ishvara is the divine creator of the world. So although there are Buddhists who assert the existence of great deities, they do not accept that these deities are creators. So here then a sort of question arises that Buddhist scriptures disagree with the proponents of divine creators and spend much time analyzing this issue. So are Buddhists hostile toward others' philosophical stances? So here, the point of these analyses is to understand for oneself whether a divine creator exists or not, to engage in that kind of analysis. It's not to generate hostility toward others. So here, again, when it comes to the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha has asked us to analyze his teachings, to examine with logic, and based upon having found that they are logical, having found that they accord with reality, then in turn, we are going to accept those teachings. So again, it's not just sort of accepting out of, oh, well, this is what the Buddha said, as will come later, that the Buddha himself has said that analyze my words well, as one would analyze gold, through melting, refining, and polishing, and then adopt them. The skilled should not engage them out of admiration or for other reasons. So we shouldn't just take up the Buddha's teachings just because out of respect, or just saying like, oh, well, this is what the Buddha said, so this is how it is. But rather, we are required to analyze and engage with the teachings of the Buddha. And this also means that we are needing to understand when the Buddha is teaching something that is definitive and when the Buddha is teaching something that requires interpretation. So here, going back to the text, it says the teacher, Buddha, stated that his disciples should thoroughly examine his teachings and should thoroughly examine his teachings well and accept them once they have eliminated any doubt. So the Buddha did not want his disciples to engage with his words out of faith and admiration alone, accepting them merely because the Buddha spoke them. So here, again, we need to examine for ourselves and also recognize that the Buddha's teachings were given with a particular purpose. The Buddha teaches in accordance with the sort of dispositions and needs and wants of beings. So we can see that we need to also understand whether a teaching is definitive or provisional. In some texts, we see that the Buddha asserts the existence of a self, that there is a self who accumulates karma, who experiences the results. It's sort of like the self and the aggregates are likened to sort of a master and a servant sometimes, or we see other teachings wherein the Buddha is making it clear that there is some kind of a self, but those are only sort of provisional for those beings to whom teaching selflessness would be dangerous or would be unwise for some reason. If some beings are taught the teachings on selflessness too early, they're not able to handle it. They go into a kind of nihilistic view based upon that. So the Buddha teaches in accordance with the situation, teaches contextually. There are times when the Buddha said, yes, there is a self, and taught in order to lead those who needed to hear that. There are those times where the Buddha said, no, there is no such self. And there are times when the Buddha would be asked a question and remain silent on it, not giving an answer one way or the other. So some might look at that and say, well, oh, the Buddha doesn't know or isn't able to answer in those situations. But it's actually about knowing skillful means and knowing when to teach a particular kind of a topic. So the Buddha knows everything is omniscient, but he also understands then the sort of needs and predispositions of various disciples and teaches in accordance with the kinds of needs of those beings, their previous imprints, the kinds of disposition that they have. And so we can see in the way that the Buddha has taught that the Buddha expects us to, as it says here, wanting to enhance his disciples' intelligence. The Buddha told them to accept his teachings only after examining his words closely. So we have to see the way in which we too have to engage in that kind of analysis, and that definitive teachings are difficult to recognize, in part because of the fact that there are different philosophical schools. We have to understand the sort of perspective of the Vaibhashikas and the Sutra school, the mind-only school, and the Madhyamakas, and so forth, and see that those teachings accord with the minds of various different beings. So there's the danger of sort of having the wrong thought arise in relation to a Buddha's particular teaching. And so we should recognize that often we're just sort of giving teachings, not necessarily knowing the kind of dispositions or needs of various disciples, but we should ideally have a kind of understanding that the Buddha taught in accordance with those needs and dispositions of various disciples. And we ourselves should examine and analyze the kind of teachings of the Buddha, not just accept them out of respect for him.
Tongba ni sikdwa rangwine trube tongba se shirchen jin deyo kapsu songwe yora o tozu nangba kangwe kaya linga marwa diya ka semchang bada ni shita bada ni doti bata su kaya linga marwa bo chizu kaya melge mambu yordo o kasire Swatentri se gantu ka dadi umarangi balayat keli malen kechichiora yotan ko karsura vipashi sigrat vipashit ni vijanwa dise swatentri se o konju kangan tudama tuzu keli medwa o chizu kuti karsura the member Sanjay Song Shabba Song Shandal, then the Shandas killing Yora, Lola Chutu Yomardo. Until the two Tangde Sigora, Sanjay Song Yores, so Yana could Tangde Res. The teacher de la Cone, Sombare, the Tanda de Sombana Shitata Mare, the Combashan, the teacher Shandal Cone Sombares, Combashes the Shandal Patrangores, Tangde and Yedin Domabu Urana Belulia. Yedin Doseneco Sombana Shital Tara, never Kelly Chobat Sigora. Tangde Dos the Quebe one that teacher Sambe Cambulatune, so Java Mabuchico, Kelly Quayo just a Tangde Dot and Yedin Dose. What in the Tangde Mabu Yorwa, what is Sonja Nambale to the Mambu Yatira. Teacher so low some Tangda, low syrup jet said and timber. Choson Shedden, Kasha de Abudosan, Kasha de Abudus, Kasha de Abudosam. Rimbi ko Tadutelia, Tierra. Shama de Abushens and Tama de Third of Church, Timare Tiris, and go Tadelia Shundor, or Tigone Serisam. Near Loga Cherudora. Marazu Zendra de Chibarwa. Zendra to the Kashing Marti, I let the Tama to the Ashen Rudoa. Oh, did you love me?
Mhm. So, for example, like emptiness, as it is taught in the Perfection of Wisdom sutras, this is not something that all of the various schools within Buddhism accept as being definitive teachings. So here, for example, the other schools, even down to the Vaibhashikas and the Sautrantikas, the Vinyavada, the mind-only school, as well as the Svatantrika autonomous, they would say that these cannot be accepted as literally definitive, that actually the teachings that appear in the Perfection of Wisdom sutras are those that are provisional, that are actually leading to another meaning. And so it's not as though all of the various philosophical schools accept the teachings in the same way. So it is, again, due to the various sort of dispositions of these various disciples that the Buddha has given different teachings. So it is according to like the mind-only school or some of these others, that the Perfection of Wisdom sutras were taught for a particular reason, but it's ultimately to lead sentient beings to another kind of an understanding. They would say that those teachings, as they are given there, can lead to a wrong kind of understanding. And so it's actually the case that we need to learn in accordance with our minds and sort of progress in the way that you progress when you begin a course of study. You don't really know anything, but through exposure and through being introduced to things that accord with the way that you are thinking, you are able to develop a kind of understanding over time. We see this as one proceeds through the monastery and so forth. But the kind of way in which the teachings are understood to be either interpretable, those that need interpretation, or definitive, varies among the various philosophical schools.
Oh, yeah. That do it. Chadar Tagba Cheba, then Jiden Goba, you may tell a Chidar never. Oh, Tishi Gobet, $8 on your armado. Shala Tawachi Maresero. Tumba Sanje Niji Sumba Namlaya, Tujanam Jetaje Chevure son Yorese. Tane Susu Taje Chene, Sanje Sumba Kusen to Chene Ichima Chese. Tele Taje Chene, Susu Lolea Papa Ati, Monere Samsachi, Tindona, any Tikele, Timato Kele Gomarese. Son Yora. Tane Tetum Chebana Kele Goba Sonsha, Sonshese. Tumbe Tedar Sumba Tar. Tumba Rani la Tuja Tingazo, Kalondagam Kenam, the Sejeta session to Lebertalanga, Laja, Kushimesa Vedera, Sanjelo Kubachev, Sekanga Kemelese, Soso Taxe Soede, Chochineko, Sosulo that some Masam Setire, Chochineko, Sosushira Payet and Dara. Near Lavakanga Tavara Chasha, what it does, and I need to run in Bere, some of the Shanda, some time Yomara. Onge laba dozola taje chi sol bab sona ne kela tiba do ngala teba yes labje samanya go mare sonde Quran cheba che samlo ko yora soso cheba che samlo ko do Quran le sheba yora namje yorwa shiro yorwa 소소빠져 싫어야 개요와 어디 이나 맨나서 가데 이나 something 제바시도 소소 싫어 고네 고도 배던달 다시치 숨거라 다고 제고 말다 로다데 녜라고 정말에 인삼 되서는 아니고 때라 이제 제마도 삼로코로 고고 말도 자 싫어 요아를 봐 매일 강가 싫어도 로 짜게 된다려 아니 딱제시나 딱바치 해야 돼 소소래지 딱제시에 싫어 여버티 딱제래 제시에는 싫어 고네 고도 배두고라 뒤손잡고 딱제시에 계시물에서 뒤손거마도 녜하고 말에 로스 결론다감 캐남게 결론다면 캐버서 결혼서 하고 그래서 석제다에 세신도 세리아 제바 숨전에 색바 메타다 제바 뚝길이 색제 따로와 돌파 다는 해에 메타에 숨겨라 세대야 보시 임바다디선테 숨겠다고 그러다 멜레시 따고 있어라 색바세 제바스 뚜니 끼대야 해메드 삼거라 따로와서 양래 참으여나 도든들 따네 하고 있어라 설제 다외 세션도 레버 따라가에 가서 나와샤에 매밤 생기 개발 좀 해서 되네 개랑고래 딱제 전에 꽤면도 나 개랑고래서 지대베 세진이나 자신부터 대신 섭섭지기도 와서 되는 거라도 되고 경화치다 레 가서 기디기 주가를 건데 좋아서 백해신 부려 되어다 어떻게 그 딱제 제고래서라 라와르자에 매밤 생기 개발 좀 해서 생겨져요래 라와르자에 그치르면 생겨져요래 또 줄면 되는거도 산제로 그셔 제베에서 대송과 참아 많이 했어라 그치르면서는 라와르자에 매밤 생기 개발 좀 해서 산제를 매바 대바 유배 원도 제바다 디 멤버도 나데 산제된 가서 뜸바래 대소장에 개랭에서 된대전에 현다 내주전에 개말에서다 나와자 매바 생기 개발 좀 어디 송에 됐던다 하셔들 딱제 지역에 제고를 손도 콜로트 개를 팽기도 와그 딱제 전에는 싫어 공내 공도 배 개발이 왔다 나 대시교나 근데 그래 뭐 로제서
So, here again, the point of all of this analysis is for us to come to our own conclusions. So it's not, again, to generate hostility toward others, but the Buddha, the teacher, the Buddha, stated that his disciples should thoroughly examine his teachings well and accept them only when they have eliminated any doubt. So it's not as though the Buddha gave these teachings just for us to accept them out of respect or sort of thinking like, oh, he's called the teacher, so I should just accept these kinds of teachings. But rather, it is in order for us to eliminate any kind of wrong views, and also to enhance his disciples' intelligence. Sorry. So here, the Buddha did not want his disciples to engage with his words out of faith and admiration alone, accepting them merely because the Buddha spoke them. But he gave these kinds of teachings in order that his disciples might enhance their own intelligence. And so the Buddha told them to accept his teachings only after examining his words closely. So we need to engage with the teachings in this way, wherein we're sort of willing to actually chew on it, to really use our own intelligence in order to increase that more and more. It's not as though the Buddha just wants to say, okay, this is the wrong view, don't accept that view, this is the right view, just accept this view. But we need to use the kind of wisdom that we have. We all have wisdom in various different kinds of levels. But the idea of trying to analyze these teachings is to increase and develop that kind of wisdom that we already have, in order that we are able to really know what is correct and incorrect, not just accepting what the Buddha says out of a sense of obligation or respect. Again, as this quotation says, analyze my words well as one would analyze gold through melting, refining, and polishing, and then adopt them. So we should engage in this process of like the three sort of levels of checking out gold to make sure when it comes to something like gold, we're usually really careful. We kind of do these various processes of sort of melting to see if there are any large impurities, and then refining and polishing and making sure it's really right. And it should be that way too when it comes to things like instructions regarding our future lives and gaining liberation and so forth. We should be very careful to understand this properly. And as the second half says, the skilled should not engage them out of admiration or for other reasons. The Buddha is not asking us to accept his words out of a sense of admiration or for some other sort of reason, like, oh, all of these other people think he seems to be telling the truth, so I should too. But rather, the Buddha gives these teachings with the purpose of leading us to the right view through our own discriminating intelligence. So as much as we are able to, we should refine and use that kind of skill, because really the part of the purpose in the Buddha's giving these teachings is to increase our own discriminating intelligence and awareness.
Oh yeah, this is awesome. Huh? Oh yeah, that's all.
So we'll stop there for today as we've run out of time. So
Oh yeah.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of wholesome's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Thank you, Gilman Rinpoche. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, that's all. That's all.
And
Oh, yeah.
thank you for your clear translations. For the people online, thank you for those who contributed to the offering that we made on the Day of Miracles. And just to let you know that the last teaching in this series will be on April 6th. We'll see you next Thursday.
That's all.